Hi, everyone. It's Kate with the Morning Ag Clips. And I'm here today with Kevin Kouri of Phoenix Feeds. And I wanted to take time to introduce them. They are a new advertiser on the scene with us in the northeastern states, and thought it would be interesting for you to hear about their story, who Kevin is, and what he does with Phoenix. So, hello, Kevin. Welcome.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate the time with you today.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So, Kevin, tell us a little bit about the history of Phoenix Feeds and when they came on the scene. It'll take me back to my days of being in Cargill.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks, Kate. Yeah, so Phoenix started, it'll be 21 years this
Oh,
coming
wow.
August. We
Okay.
celebrated our 20th last August. So in the grand scheme of feed companies in the Northeast, we're very young. If you
Yep.
think about the established feed companies that are in the marketplace. But within that 20 years, Phoenix has seen a massive amount of growth in the marketplace, and that
Yeah.
really was started and continues to be driven by David Santos, who is the founder of Phoenix and created Phoenix, 21 years ago, coming this August. And David has a long history in the business, comes from California dairy.
Okay.
Grew up in California, managed dairies in California, did consulting as well, nutrition consulting on the West Coast, and came east uh, because his wife is from the East Coast. His wife is from Vermont, and he was working for another feed provider in Vermont, and um, basically was looking to move and develop what he felt was a hole in the marketplace. And I think really the timing with the feed commodities, which is where he was at, and the timing with the change in ownership at feed commodities drove him to really moving in this direction and establishing really initially was just doing some commodities and some small, blending in a smaller facility, which is not where we sit today in terms of our headquarters. And now, obviously, we are, a fully integrated feed mill, and that mill was built over time and continues to grow in its present state in New Haven, Vermont, which is, if anyone knows Vermont, it's just a little bit above Middlebury and just a little bit south of Burlington. So
Yeah,
that
kind of a
that is
difficult place to get to.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
We move a lot of feed, and I think about the routes our trucks take sometimes, and as far as they go into New York, and it seems like the longest stretch is to getting from
Yep.
our mill out to Saratoga Springs. So
Yep. Yeah, it's quite a trek, especially in the bad weather over the
hmm
hills and through the
yeah,
fields and all of that. So, I mean, what's interesting, and this kind of dates myself, is that Phoenix wasn't even on the scene back when I was doing it. And but feed commodities was, and
yeah.
it's interesting to hear how David kind of took that and ran with it to fill the niche. So tell me about what is the culture of Phoenix Feeds and what is that niche that was filled all those years ago?
Yeah, so I mean, the void that he saw and that we still really service today when we think about our who we service, right? We obviously at the end of the day we service our dairy farmers, but
Mhm.
we also, what we say is we have two customers. We have the consultant groups that are starting to continue to grow throughout the Northeast, and I believe will continue to grow throughout the Northeast in what we say in the business, control cows. And that other niche is a feed mill that would service those consulting groups. So, if David was joining me today, David would talk about some of his very first consultants that he worked with, and the likes of Dave King at Holtz Nelson.
Mhm.
Some of these guys that have been in the marketplace, feeding cows. He went out and tried to sell them on the concept that we would bid and mill their feeds and deliver it at a competitive price. And we do have an in-house team. I do a little nutrition work, but not like I used to. I have a colleague that works in the area, and we have a feed mill in the state of Maine as well, in Augusta, and we have a woman up there as well. But really, 80% of that feed that comes out of our mill every day is formulated by an independent consultant. And most of that feed is probably crossing the border and going into the state of New York as well. So
Okay.
that California West Coast mentality and really the way, what we see in other areas of the country, with consulting groups feeding cows and mills just doing milling, and being really thinking about the margin structure a little bit differently, is where David thought, there was a gap. And I think the vision that he had, which I think is as absolutely spot on and continues to show itself, is that the traditional feed mills in the Northeast that have a big team and have this overhead of salespeople, will continue to be less and less, and the dominant structure that we'll see feeding cows on dairies will be the likes of these groups that are in some cases not only national but worldwide, but also regional.
Yeah, I guess that was my follow-up question to you is over the years, have you seen that percentage shift from the private consultant doing business with you to you doing all of the service out of your mill? Has
Mm.
it changed drastically in the 20 years? Is the pendulum swinging to be primarily, I mean, that 80%, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, so I've been in the business since 2003. I've been at Phoenix only since 21.
Okay.
I know Phoenix, obviously not only as my time at Phoenix, but I also know Phoenix as a competitor when I
Hmm.
was at a prior feed company. But I still feel that, I can really answer that question, Kate. And coming back to that, really the role I've taken over the last 5 years as I've tried to strengthen the relationships and the partnerships with these consultants is what pieces can we potentially fit in and complement the consultant, and create a partnership and not it being competitive. Now, as I indicated, I do some work and we have a colleague that does some work, but there's enough geography, enough territory over there that we feel like we're not stepping on each other's toes. And what
Yeah.
I mean by each other's toes is us versus these consultants. But we also want to be a touch point. Sometimes, and we talk about this amongst the management team, sometimes they see the truck driver more than anybody else from the company.
Yeah.
And I try to be the conduit in between the consultant and the dairyman, and what potentially we can offer from time to time from services. That might be, forage audits or our Spanish support. We have a young lady that lives out by Syracuse that does some calf work. She's bilingual, right?
Yeah.
What are some pieces that maybe the consultant and his group isn't offering that allows us to offer at
Mhm.
no additional cost, right back to the dairy, and then strengthening those ties back to Phoenix as a preferred supplier because these consultants have other feed companies that they're bidding feed with,
Right.
just not Phoenix.
Right. It is a very competitive market. And
Very.
at the end of the day, it's about helping dairy farmers be profitable. And I think so much of that, which the shift has been drastic in that it's a team that's
Mm-hmm.
helping the dairy farm succeed. And if
Yeah.
you can sit at the table with a private independent nutritionist as well as the veterinarian and the loan officer, that's going to set the farm up for its best shot at
Yeah.
success and paying the bills.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple weeks ago. I was in a farm meeting here in Vermont. The farm works with an independent consultant. I was at that meeting. My calf specialist was there with me. Like you said, the veterinarian, the bank, the
Mhm.
AI company. We were all in that room, a quarterly meeting, trying to drive the business. So we really, really look to be in partnership with these guys. At the same time, though, if they need an option, there is an option because we want to make sure that there is a bench, a bullpen per se,
Right,
if need be.
right. So you told me a little bit about your job with Phoenix, and I think how much of your week is spent on a dairy farm versus in the office.
Yeah, it varies, and I know you probably know, going back to your time on the road, it does vary. I mean, I love being on the road. I love being on
Yep.
farm. I really that's where my passion is. But I do find weeks where I'm like I have a lot of things stacking up that are also important for business development, and I need to be, in the office. But there's that innate drive get out and to be in the truck and to go visit dairies and I love walking cows and I love kicking stones in the driveway talking to dairymen. Um, so I think the beauty of my position and what David has allowed me to do at Phoenix is really kind of right manage myself, drive the business. And yeah, sometimes it does get very crazy and hectic. But I would love to say I can do that 50-50, but I really feel that it's probably more 80% on the road and
Yep.
out there growing business and 20% in the office based on our activities that we have to do. So um,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
if I could do it
understand.
all, I would do it all from the windshield of the truck, but I
Yep.
can't.
I know. It's so hard. And I don't know. Are you from a did you grow up as a dairy farm on a dairy
No,
farm?
nope. I,
Okay.
I I was a 4-H kid
Okay.
that had no ag background on either side of my family, and I had two parents that supported, my aspirations to, explore 4-H. And luckily,
Yeah.
I grew up in Massachusetts. Just don't hold
Oh,
that against
okay.
me. Um,
I won't. I'm north of the border is where I grew
so
up, and I'll try
so
to put
yeah.
my animosity aside.
Yeah, so I grew up in Massachusetts, but still grew up in a part of Massachusetts that had some ag. Unfortunately, there's no ag in that area today, and
Yeah,
and um and was a 4-H kid that saw this and was passionate about it and pursued it further on in college.
got it. So, in your parting words, Kevin, what would you want our audience to know in particular? What's the parting statement about your company and what you do that you'd like them to know about Phoenix Feeds?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think our what we're known for, our slogan, if you see one of our sweatshirts around town or our t-shirts, and that slogan that David came up with is, we feed the farmers that feed the world. And I that I really, you know, you really think about that. We feed the farmers that feed the world. And that to me is the complete circle of how
Yep.
I think Phoenix approaches our clients. Phoenix approaches the industry, and really, as we just talked about a minute ago, that partnership and that's exciting. We continue to figure out how to grow those partnerships, and everybody at Phoenix is super passionate. There's guys in the mill that are ex-dairy farmers that are no longer farming and they work for us, or we have a truck driver that used to be a farmer and now they're driving truck. I joke we're the one percenters, right? We may not be the one percenters in terms of economic superpowers, but we're the one percenters in terms of what we do.
Yep.
I think we all have passion. You got to have passion in this
Yep.
business, and I feel that everybody in the organization, from our drivers to our mill ops, to the team in the office, to the executive group, we really, we all have our days, right, that aren't great, but we really love the business, and we're excited to grow. And that's been one thing that it's been really exciting to see over the last couple of years, is the growth that we continue to put on, buying another mill in Maine, to trying to figure out how to continue to go further west,
Yep.
into New York. We wouldn't do that if we weren't passionate about it.
Right. It takes a lot of work
Yeah.
and it's driven by heart
Yeah, it
and
is.
love
It
of
is.
the
I don't know
industry.
how our drivers do it. I get guys that call me up and be like, "I saw your truck out on the other side of Syracuse. What the hell?"
Yeah.
And it's like I once in a while, run into them and they love it. Our guys, just really, 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 really do. And it's that Phoenix pride running down the street, on our trailers and we run lean and mean, and I think that's one way we get it done.
Yep.
But yeah, to kind of think about what that encompasses, and David, and even Craig, even though Craig has really stepped back a little bit out of the business, it shows right there, right at the highest level within the business, through his executive team down through everybody, like I just said, that everyone just really cares. I think hopefully our marketing and our image resonates that. And I certainly, when I'm out on farm, try to bring that, obviously, to our clients and visiting with consultants.
Well, that's a great message, Kevin. And I'm so glad that you shared the story. I certainly have a better understanding of the company and how it started and what you can do for your clients. And for anybody out there, in particular in the Northeast, who's interested in questions about what Phoenix Feeds can do for them and their operation, Kevin, how are they going to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way, I mean, if you want to get directly in touch with me, you can shoot me an email at kevin@phoenixfeeds.net. It's the O before the E, not the E before the O. Or
Okay.
just go onto our website. Go onto our website, phoenixfeeds.net. You can send in an inquiry through our website. We are very active on Instagram. We're very active on Facebook. And we try to communicate as much as possible, through there, farmer focused. So there are multiple ways that you could shoot a message in. But yeah, start with our social media, in our web page, and then you certainly can reach out to me directly if need be.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Mac Meets Phoenix Feeds. And if you need anything, Kate at Morning Ag Clips always works. And as well, thank you. And thank you for tuning in every day to your quick 1-2 for agricultural news. Morning Ag Clips. Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
Kate. Yep,
Bye.
thank you. Bye bye.